Welcome to Real Talk Savannah. Today we have Jarad Brown. He's a lender. I'll let him introduce who he's with and what he does for you guys.
Hey, Jarad Brown with New American Funding. I'm a mortgage lender here in Savannah. I've been a mortgage lender for 12 years. Also born and raised here in Savannah. Live on the south side of Savannah in Rosedew with my two children, Miles and Lulu. Before lending, I was a firefighter here with Savannah for 7 years. Got into mortgages and been doing this ever since.
12 years, you said?
12 years.
12 years. Okay, so I already met up with you and we talked about some stuff. Let's talk to everyone about lending. So we've had another lender on here, but what I like about this conversation is we have a little more leeway with what we can talk with because it's not as much. It was a larger bank, so we had to kind of stay within some lines, guidelines. So we don't have those.
I will be an open book.
I love that.
Sure.
So I think what we could start with is I think everybody's wondering. 2024 was a rough year.
Yeah.
It was a rough year for you, for realtors, for buyers, for sellers, for lenders. So what have you seen? Have you seen it let up and go in a more positive direction? Like what information can you give us about the market?
Yeah, for sure.
No matter whether it's investor, we'll start there with lending, with the market, with like where you foresee it going.
So 2024 was the worst year in real estate in the last 30 years.
Yeah, that's
3
wild.
decades. It was a rough year. Mm-hmm. And 2023, the year before, it wasn't much better, right? So it had been a slow decline. The biggest issues facing real estate in general has been inventory. People that bought in 2020, 2019, sitting on very low interest rates, not wanting to move, not wanting to make that jump, while demand has increased exponentially since that point in time.
Exactly.
And so there's been this movement from north to south, mainly created by COVID, people's ability to work remotely and, make New York City money, Maryland money, Pennsylvania money, but enjoy our weather, enjoy our politics, enjoy everything that the South has to offer. So we've seen a lot of people coming down. We've also seen a lot of industry coming into town with the Hyundai plant, the deepening of the ports.
So that affects the locals. So what have you noticed with the way?
So that creates a bunch of demand, a lot more buyers in the market, and we've struggled thus far to keep up with inventory, and that's really what's been plaguing the housing industry over the last 2 years. Since the elections back in November, there's been sort of a renewed optimism from half of the country. I think for a while there, it didn't matter which side of the aisle you were on, you were pretty disgruntled. You saw things getting more expensive, housing getting more expensive, interest rates going up, the cost of goods going up. With the election, we knew one thing, that no matter what, half of America was going to be excited. Renewable energy, right? So instead of everybody being kind of down in the dumps, we could
depend on that half.
Right. And what that's going to bring in is more investment, to your point. More people coming in, willing to put their money on the line. When people are unsure about the future, they tend to hold on to their money. Yeah,
because last year was hard for any market, whether you're in the retail market, whether you're no matter what, business or investment or real estate, it was a rough year for everybody. Yeah, so they were holding back.
And so when consumer sentiment goes up, you see people more willing to take risk, more willing to invest in businesses, in real estate, and other things. So we've seen a bit of an uptick since the elections. We still have a long way to go.
This is slow and steady.
Correct. Yeah, and there's still issues facing us, but at least there seems now to be a light at the end of the tunnel.
But we're still dealing with inventory.
That we're going. Well, we're starting to see inventory sit on the market a little bit longer than it had over the past 2 years. But buyers are still faced with elevated interest rates, right? I think we're a little unique here in Savannah as opposed to the rest of the nation in that it is still a good opportunity to buy here. I believe that
our price point is still pretty low in comparison to some other
major cities. Absolutely. But also there's still a lot more demand for housing here than what's available. And I think that demand is only going to grow over time, right? As more industries come to the area. Like I said, we had the Hyundai plant come in, and then there's all the supporting businesses that come with that, the deepening of the ports. And we're getting the infrastructure to actually handle the influx of people. It's been said that Savannah now is kind of where Austin was a decade ago.
Well, that's promising.
Right. And so getting into the market now, even with all the barriers, the higher interest rates, things like that, home values are going to continue to grow in this area for the foreseeable futures, and investors are taking advantage of that opportunity.
Okay, so let's talk about price point in Savannah. What is as a lender, what do you see come through? For me, I feel like if it's over, as a realtor, if it's over 700, it's really hard.
Right.
So what do you see people coming in, like what is an average price point? Residential world, we might flip back and forth. This is... I like where this is going.
Well, let's stay with the investors for a second.
Okay.
It depends on which type of investor. The duality of the South is you can have very inexpensive houses right next door to $1 million mansions, right? And so that attracts all different types of investors.
Yeah.
You have people that are wanting to buy a small, cheap home, renovate it, and rent it out for cash flow reasons.
Right.
And we have plenty of those development areas in Savannah.
And it takes an investor to see it where it wouldn't take a regular buyer.
Correct.
Right.
And have the resources to put the money into the house.
Exactly.
And so we're seeing redevelopment of neighborhoods in the city, people buying those older houses.
So do you have investors that you work with regularly to maneuver
Absolutely.
loans on that?
Yeah, I have investors that have bought 4, 5, and 6 houses just for that.
Do you assist with the process too on your end? Or do they just come in and you handle the loan part? But are there different programs? What if it's a new investor?
Right, the green investor, right? A lot of investors will come in. They'll already know what the house is going to cash flow them before they even talk to me. What they go through with me is getting that pre-approval letter for their realtor.
Right.
Making sure my numbers match what they match.
Gotcha.
Just basically checking their work. And then you have the green investors, people who want to get in.
Right.
They don't know how. They don't know the rules of investing or what they're going to need to obtain that property. And for those, we can coach them up a lot more. And it all depends on what their overall goals are. Is this a buy and hold where they want equity way down the line? Or do they need the house to cash flow right now? And figuring out what their goals and aspirations are in that purchase, and then customizing the loan and the loan program to exactly what it is they're looking to do.
Right. And the point of this podcast is to let people know that you don't already have to have it figured out. Get a realtor who understands the market. But first, I think before you ever hire a realtor and start looking, you should hire a lender.
I like that answer.
I do. That's just really how I feel. I know that a lot preach it the other way, but it's cutting out a lot of the time and giving a straight shot to what to look at. If we have information from the lender, it narrows it down for the realtor.
For sure. And, with the different avenues people can take now on investment properties like DSCR loans, more people are eligible to buy investment properties than they know, right? A lot of people don't think, they think they don't have the means. Well, I don't have the income to buy an investment property. I'm only, like myself.
I want everyone to listen to this. You just need to go see a lender. You do have, this is what I preach a lot during this podcast. You don't know till you know. You need to go visit the professional and come up with a plan, because a lot of people can do more than they think. Right. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah. And know that, there's ways of us getting you into the home if that is what your goal is. And if not, coaching you to let you know where you need to be. Right. But I find that a whole lot of buyers, they think that they can't for one reason or another. I can't because I don't have the assets.
I can't because I don't have enough money down. I can't.
I can't because, I don't have the income to afford a $500,000 home. Right. But like I said, with DSCR loans, we can use the potential rental income to qualify you. We can look at what that property is going to cash flow or what it has cash flow.
So even though on paper with what they're bringing in versus what the property costs, if the property has, I'm just slowing it down because you're so smart with this. I want to just make it very clear. So if the property is capable of cash flow, what if it's capable? What if it's not already bringing in? That's still a factor?
Yes, absolutely. If it's capable, right? And if you're going to go after a DSCR loan, you want to have good credit.
And what does DSR stand for?
DSCR, debt service ratio.
Got it. Okay.
And so if you're going to go after one of those loans, you need to make sure that you have good credit.
Okay.
You're going to want about 3 months in reserves.
Okay.
And when I say reserves, that's monthly payments stuffed away in case, the house doesn't rent out.
Right.
So you're going to have enough assets for that, and you're going to want about 20% down.
Okay.
There's some lenders out there that'll let you do it at 15% down, but it's really hard to get a property to cash flow in this interest rate environment with less than 20% down.
Okay.
So you can literally have no job, no forms of income. If you have those other 3 things, then you can get an investment property. Okay. And that's definitely something people have come to me with before. Outside of that, you also have people who they know they have the income and the credit score, but they don't have the assets. And that's something we can work with as well. There's a lot of down payment assistance loans out there. There's grants from both the city and the state that you can get to help with down payment assistance.
Yeah,
there's loan programs.
I did know that, I didn't know that before, but in the last year I learned that there's even down payment assistance.
Yes, the down payment assistance, grants, loans, and then there's even loans out there that don't require down payment that will lend up to 100%. There's VA
and down payment
and
assistance
USDA.
is still a thing with investment properties.
No,
I didn't think so.
No, that is for primary residences only.
Yeah. Which is a first property, which could then you have an asset, and then you can more likely move into an investment property after your first residential property purchase.
And one thing that we're seeing a lot of right now, because home values have gone up so quickly, is that a lot of people have a ton of equity that they haven't tapped into in their primary residence. And if you're taking out debt, it doesn't matter whether it's tied to your primary or to the investment property itself. It's debt that you will owe that's tied to a property. So if you're thinking that you might want to become an investor, but you don't have, 20-25% sitting in your bank account, you should look at tapping into the equity that's in your primary residence by using a home equity line of credit.
And why would someone be scared to do that?
Well, people don't like putting more debt on the house that they're living in. But if you're holding that debt and your intent is to pay that debt, then it doesn't matter where it's held, whether it's held against your 401k because you took out a 401k loan, or against your primary residence, or against the property you're buying. If your goal is to make those payments, then it doesn't really matter where the debt is held. But most people fear putting more debt on their primary residence because it's easier to let go of an investment property.
It's risky. It's a risk.
There's a risk in anything that makes money.
There's a risk in anything. I'm a risk taker. I mean, I own a business, but I think, So I think that risks are not scary to me because you don't get any reward or you don't really grow or become more successful without risk. So I think I, as a realtor, deal with a lot of home buyers that they buy the home and they're like, oh, I wish I could invest. It's just about going in and seeing a lender and coming up with a plan. I think you've already purchased a home. You've already done that. Why not?
Right.
Why not do more? Currently, I have a friend who owns a property and they're a realtor, and they're a little hesitant to invest in themselves, yet they work with investors all day, every day. Right. They have friendships with lenders, and even they are hesitant. They're like, I don't have enough money down. I don't have enough this down, but I feel like, or I don't, what if I don't get it rented? What if this, what if this, what if that? I just am like, dude, they have half of it. Go talk to a lender and come up with a plan and you'll feel better.
Right.
And this is a realtor.
Yeah.
I'm
while we're talking about taking risk, real estate has historically been one of the safest.
Yeah.
And one of the easiest ways to wealth is through real estate. And so one of the pushback things I get is, well, I'm going to wait till rates come down before I buy. I don't want to, especially on investment rates are a little bit higher than on primary residence interest rates. And so I hear people saying, well, when rates get down a little bit further,
I hear it a lot too.
Buy that.
Yeah.
But in our environment, especially here in Savannah, we've seen home values go up a lot, especially over the last 2 years.
Right.
If you're going to wait 2 more years for interest rates
Then the value of the
go
house,
down,
right.
you're going to end up paying a ton more for the house.
Mm-hmm.
And even at lower interest rates, you could end up with the same payment as you would have had.
Right.
The only difference is you have much less equity in the home.
Right.
Right. And so it's kind of cliche, but the best time to buy is always as soon as you're able to buy.
Mm-hmm. When the interest rates were lower, was the prices of the houses skyrocketed.
Correct.
So it really, that's
and
such a good point.
And you can always refinance down the line once
Exactly.
interest rates go back down.
Right.
You can refinance them.
Which is another good reason to have a good relationship with your lender.
Well, correct.
To do so. Don't you think it's still important to have a physical local lender rather than, being online and just being, I just think it's important with a purchase like this.
Completely biased here. But yes,
yeah,
I believe
I know
that
you're biased, but I mean, as a realtor, I feel more comfortable when someone's working with a local. I like the feedback. What is the lender saying about the market? It helps roadmap me to help them find the proper, purchase the
right.
property.
And we're easier to hold accountable, right?
Now that's
we're
on
here
you.
in front of you, right? All
kidding.
of my clients get my cell phone number. They all know where I work.
Right.
They can all come sit in front of me.
I enjoy working with a local lender
time.
and being able to text and say, where are we at with the process? How's it going?
And there's value in that. I've
absolutely.
seen my buyers' offers get accepted sometimes over equally as good offers, but the other offer had a lender that was an online lender or somebody that the listing agent didn't recognize.
Right.
And I think a lot of, especially here in Savannah, it's a tight-knit community. When they see a name on a pre-approval letter that they've
worked with,
that they've seen them bring it to the table before, they're going to tell their seller, like, hey, I've seen Jarad bring loans to the table before. I know he's good at what he does.
Right. And especially when you're talking investment too, because, those can go by quicker, and it is good when someone's trying to buy multiple properties at once to have everything come through very smoothly. Also have a lender that understands the local politics and the local environment. I know we're talking investment here, but a lot of times in investment, you'll deal with condos, and it's really good to have a local investor that understands our weird, non-warrantable condo.
Right.
And I've had an outside lender, I had an investor come through from California, actually want to purchase a ton of properties, and they were condos downtown. They were on Broughton Street above on Montgomery and Broughton. There was a whole slew of them for sale there, and they wanted to come in and buy it. They were using a bank and a lender locally in California, and they could not push through the sale because it was a non-warrantable condo. Right. So we went and ended up using a local lender because they knew exactly how to get it pushed through.
And even down to little things like taxes, understanding property taxes in Savannah. If you're using an outside lender, they may look at the current tax assessed value on the property and say that your taxes are at one point, but they don't understand that we have Stevens Day bill here that locks in tax assessed values so that they don't change.
Right. And what is that? Explain what that is.
So homestead exemption, if you're buying a property as your primary residence, you can file for what's called homestead exemption, which gives you a little bit of a decrease on your tax assessed value. What Stevens Day bill does is it locks in that tax assessed value for as long as you own the home and it's your primary residence.
Oh, okay.
So there's plenty of people in Savannah that have owned their homes 20, 30 years that have gone up in value, $300,000, $400,000 in value, but they're still paying taxes on what they bought the house for. Which makes a big difference, because if another lender just pulls that tax card, they're going to think, the taxes on this house are $500 a year. When in all actuality, once you buy the house and that tax assessed value goes to whatever you paid for it, right? Because an apple is worth what you pay for it.
Right.
Then you end up with a huge escrow shortage.
Right.
Right. Or most of the time it doesn't even get that far, because the title company, whenever they're putting title out, will say, no, the taxes aren't going to be 100, they're going to be 5,000, right? Or whatever that difference is.
Right.
And so using a local lender that understands these things can make a big difference.
Yeah, pushes it through a lot quicker. And you're on a timeline, you have due diligence.
Yeah, and setting the proper expectations throughout the process.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's super important. That's the only way 20 minutes, okay. I'll still, hold on, let me start over. That's good. We did a lot of information in 20 minutes.
Want to do a part two?
Yeah, we should do the part two now. Well, let me wrap that up.
Sorry to interrupt y'all.
No, you're good. This is why she's good
And
at.
we can bleed right into local lender.
Exactly.
Into
Let's do that.
I'll just naturally move away from investor and into
Okay.
first time home buyer.
That was a lot of useful information. I work a lot with investors, and I always feel comfortable using a local lender, like especially with condos. So specifically, I have a couple of lenders that buy the short-term vacation rental. So I, just feel more comfortable initially after using an out of town lender. I know that process is much smoother when you go with someone locally that understands local taxes, local laws, and the silly things like the unwarrantable condos that no other bank would push through, that has no idea.
Are their own beast, for sure.
Yeah. So let's go towards residential. So like first-time home buyers. Let's start with that.
Okay.
First-time home buyers, what does that look like for you? What if we talked about this on a previous podcast, but I want to touch on it a little more because you have a little more flexibility with what you talk about.
Right.
I used to be a bartender, and now I'm a business owner. The way that we pay ourselves as a business owners, I'll take a draw here. I'll draw a little more this month. I'll draw a little less this month based on the success of my company. So what advice can you give to those who think they can't do it because they have a funny way of getting paid?
Right. And
how do you help
so
someone
everybody's
who's in the
situation
beginning
is
of the
going
process?
to be unique, right? Not everybody that comes and sits down is a salaried employee,
Right.
or even working 40 hours a week at one job,
Right.
especially in an economy like this. People have 1, 2, 3 side hustles,
Right.
that they do. The best thing you can do is sit down with a lender as early in the process as possible. Before you find the house that you love on Zillow and are ready to make an offer, sit down with the loan officer.
Can I just say this? Because how discouraging, it's discouraging for the lender to show you 12 properties and then realize you're in a whole different, where you should be looking at entirely different properties. It's also a letdown to the buyer who has their heart set on one thing and they're just not there yet. And it's a lot of wasted energy and time. So I'll start with that. I am happy to show people properties, but now we have this other law where we have to have a buyer's brokerage agreement. It's a lot more strict. So starting with the lender is so important.
And I get it.
Even if you're not ready.
Right. And it can be intimidating, especially for a first-time home buyer to go, basically financially undress in front of a lender.
It's a very vulnerable thing to do.
But much like healthcare, a doctor can't prescribe you. They can't diagnose you without seeing you, without examining your situation, right? And so just like that, you can't get in front of a loan officer early enough. Go on and have that initial consultation. Let us look at how you're paid, what you're paid.
Right.
Let us do a soft pull on your credit and see where your credit is currently, what your liabilities are currently.
Right.
A large number of first-time homebuyers, when they sit in front of me and I tell them what they can afford on paper, they're like, holy moly. Like, I
didn't
never
even know that.
I did not think I could buy it.
And then the other thing, a lot of them don't think they have enough money down, and there are programs that help with that.
Correct. There's tons of state programs and local programs, some that are down payment assistance that come in the form of a second loan, some that are grant, right? And most of them have to do with the area median income, but some have no income limitations, right?
Gotcha.
And so there's so many of them. I could probably sit here for an hour going over all the different down payment assistance
But when that
options,
particular situation comes and sits in front of you, you know which way to put them.
Immediately, we're looking at that
because there's so many scenarios.
We're looking at credit score, assets, income, and liabilities, right? And from that, even over the phone in the initial conversation, I'm listening for, okay, does this person excel? Like, what are they great at, and where do they need help?
Okay.
Right. What we're seeing more recently than in the past is most people's barrier is assets. It's money. It's having the money for a down payment.
And there's a program, or there's
tons of people are living paycheck to paycheck. But if you have good credit, right? And you have solid income that we can use to qualify you, we can figure out the asset side of it.
Got it. There's something that you can do to work towards the purchase.
And with inventory sitting on market, I think we're kind of heading back towards a buyer's market at this point in time, where realtors can help negotiate closing cost.
Yep.
And the communication channel between the lender and the realtor becomes very important. And because I'm allowed to tell Michelle what it is we need. Hey, I got this buyer pre-approved, but I'm going to need you to try to get as much closing costs as possible in this transaction, right? I can give her the heads up.
And then I can use it as leverage for negotiation for the seller, for the selling agent and the seller.
Right, and set proper expectations with the buyer.
I love facts on paper. I hate hard sales. I just like facts on paper. Here's the numbers. Here's the situation. The lender said this. This is the situation. Here you go.
One of the encouraging
facts on paper is my favorite.
Yeah, and one of the encouraging things I'm seeing is a lot more younger people. People are starting
I love that too.
earlier.
Yeah.
I'm getting 19, 20, 21-year-olds.
Well, because rent's so high, it makes more sense to purchase.
Got to have an option.
Yeah.
And you cannot buy, I can't stress this enough, you cannot buy a home early enough in your life.
Right. It's going to gain equity no matter what the market is.
The better off you're going to be long term.
Especially in Savannah, like the market is just getting better and better. You're going to gain some equity in the house like you just are.
Right. And so getting your team together early, having a lender holding your left hand, a realtor holding your right hand, both of them walking you down the path of home ownership, you cannot start that process early enough. Even if, you're renting now or living with family, going and understanding where you sit long before you're ready to go. That way, if there is something we need to work on.
And I can't stress this again, like paying rent is crazy. We were talking about young people. I have a 23-year-old son. When he is at his job a year, he has perfect credit and he's in college. I'm like, dude, you should look into buying. Like he makes really good money at his job, even though it's a part-time job, he's bringing in significant amount of money. It's a restaurant job and it's all, luckily the restaurant, everything's recorded. So there's no cash tips under the table. Like at the end, they pay them out. They're sent, everything's on paper. So he has a W-2 or whatever. I forget the tax form to turn in. I'm self-employed, so I've had one of those in so long, but it makes more sense for him. I'm like, it's going to gain equity. You're paying so much in rent in Atlanta. I'm sure we could find a property that would be equal to the rent you're paying.
And service industry employees make a good bit of money. There's a lot of money in it. I was at the Perry Lane this past weekend and the bartender recognized me, obviously from the website. I don't get to meet all my buyers face to face, but he's like, "You're Jarad Brown." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "You did my mortgage." So my first round was free. It was really nice.
Oh, that's sweet.
But
good old Savannah.
To your point, for self-employed borrowers especially, right now is a great time to get in front of your lender. Let them see your taxes before they're filed. There's some write-offs that we can add back, non-tangible write-offs like depreciation or business use of home or mileage on your car that we can add back, and we can help you structure and set up your tax return so that we limit your tax liability while also making sure that you're claiming enough.
I did not know that.
Claiming enough income to qualify for the house. So if somebody comes in and, they provide me their 2023 tax returns and they say, I want to buy a $550,000 house, I'll say, okay, well, you need to make X amount of dollars this year, right? As long as they've grossed more than that, then it's all about figuring out, okay, well, what amount can we cut from this to limit our tax liability while still maintaining enough income to qualify for this house?
I like that.
And so this is a great time of year because that's pliable. Well,
I have a big heart for the service industry because I did it, and a lot of the conversations are I can't do it, and I'm like, yes, you can. Just go talk to a lender. You actually make a significant income. You just need to be making it on paper. It's a mindset, and then you have the first time buyers who are just scared, who have the 9 to 5. They have the same. They make the same amount. They're salaried. They're hourly. And they're just scared. So I think like the moral of the story, which we talked about this on another podcast, is just go in and do it. And you have to start with a lender. It drives me insane that they start with the realtor. Right. Like time is valuable and I will give anyone my time, but I need to know that you're ready and you're pre-qualified. And I'll get, we're not that far yet. And I'm like, well, we can't go, spend the day. I love you too, but we can't go spend the day burning gas and like a whole way. It's a day. It's a day of looking at properties. Like send me stuff and I'll give you advice on the area and help. But we should not be stepping foot in a house until you know
right. And
what you're pre-qualified for.
A lot of those fears are calmed after the first conversation. After I've talked to somebody one time.
Good. I'm just going to start sending everybody to you. Don't talk to me, talk to Jarad.
Typically like a 15, 25 minute conversation. By the end of that, I've answered enough of their questions so that they feel comfortable and confident in what they're doing.
Right.
Buying a house isn't hard. It's just new to everybody that hasn't done it before. And so like anything new, people are typically a little scared
and they
of
have
it
to be vulnerable
until
and it's
they
scary.
start figuring out, okay, so we're looking at these. So
I guess it's so much
four
easier
things.
to book the appointment with the realtor and go look at the properties that you may or may not even be able to purchase. But, the first step should always be a lender.
Absolutely, because you don't want to fall in love with something that you can't get.
It's a letdown, and you don't want to waste your own time or anyone else's
on something because you didn't have your ducks in a row. Whenever you were ready to make an offer, you didn't have your ducks in a row, and so somebody else came in and swooped up and picked it up.
Right, and it's not that scary. Like you should be talking with a lender anyway to come up with a plan, a roadmap, even if you can't do it now.
Right.
It's just,
and it's a continuation, right? All my buyers get my cell phone number. They call or text me.
That's
I let them
awesome.
know that they can call or text me anytime, typically up at 7 a.m. and I'll answer text messages.
and I know
until 10
Savannah's
at
small,
night.
but nobody's talking about your business. They're not allowed to legally.
Yeah, but
Like, just go have a conversation.
I'll have
Go get it
buyers
started.
text me 9, 10 o'clock at night. Hey, I just found this perfect house. Can you run numbers? I want to look at it tomorrow. Right.
Okay, cool.
And we get those out to them so that before they even go out and look at the house, they know what they're looking at.
I've been in a group
payment.
text with lenders that I've worked with before I go look at the we're not wasting anybody's time and also not getting anyone's hopes up, because that process is so much smoother when you have a team of people working with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, all right, so we talked about first-time buyers. Then what about second home? Like, what are rules? You have a home, you want to purchase a second home here. So let's say, we talked earlier about people moving from, bigger cities and coming to Savannah for second home. What is the difference there? Are there, because I know it's a little.
Yeah, well, it just depends on what their intended use is for the house.
If it's not investment, if it's a legit second home.
If we're not using investment income to qualify the person and they're buying it as a vacation home, then they're going to qualify with whatever their current debt load is, including their current mortgage payment if they have one. You don't have to own a home to buy a second home. A lot of people don't understand that. Like if you're in New York and you're renting an apartment and you want to buy a house in Savannah that you vacation to, that's considered a second home. It's a vacation home. Right. There are certain requirements that go with it as far as reserves. You're going to want to have at least 3 months in reserves. You're going to want at least 20% down, just like on an investment
That seems
property.
like that seems like the norm.
Right.
20% down, 3 months reserves.
But if your intent is, say you own a home in New York and you want to buy in Savannah and your intent's to move down here, spend more than half the year down here, well, then that's a primary residence. Right. And there's things we can look at to bridge that gap.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, especially if you're moving from out of state and you're moving to town, you don't want to sell everything that you have, load it up in a moving truck, drive down to Savannah, and then close on a home and then move in. Right. And so there's bridge loan programs, and at New American, we have something called NAF Cash, which helps bridge that gap. New American Funding buys the house that you're looking to buy with a cash offer. You move into it immediately, list your house, sell your house, and then you buy it from us when you're ready. Yeah. And you can rent for almost a year from us.
I just joined a Women's Wealth Society, the investment group, and we work specifically together. Everyone's female, so you can't be in it. But that's what we're doing. We have a cash. We can make cash offers to get the investments as a group, and then we do the loan after. Right.
And so there's tons of options. So for somebody who's buying their second home, it's knowing, one, what is your intent with that house? And then two, what options are available to me based off of what my intent is.
All of this was so informative. I learned a lot, but I think the moral of the story is to talk to a lender first and just go talk to them no matter what your situation is, no matter how scared you are, no matter what fear is behind it. Go talk to them, because there's a lot of things, a lot of programs. Work with a local lender. you can text Jarad. He doesn't mind texting. That's awesome. What would you want to leave our audience with? We have a lot of realtors. We have a lot of people moving here, moving to do business here, have bought a business here. Now they're looking to purchase homes here. We have people who are just wanting to know what the hell's going on in Savannah and the Savannah market. What advice could you leave just from your expertise and what you do?
Yeah, Savannah is, they call it a big, small town, right? I think one of the most important things is whether you've lived here for 20, 30 years or you're just moving to the area, it's putting your team together, putting your people together so that they can communicate and put you in the best possible position. Give you the best possible advice and introduce you to other people, be it insurance or home inspectors or whatever. It's getting that core group together and then building your team out from there.
Yep, I agree. That's the best advice. And work with locals, and specifically people born and raised here. All right, well, thanks so much for coming on. We'd love to have you on again. I think we should catch up later in the year on the market.
Okay. Sounds perfect.
Thanks for coming.